You know, change is not as difficult as you think, and you actually do it all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. Hi, I'm Gail Marie from Six Dimensions of Healing. I've been a spiritual counsellor for over 23 years, helping people incorporate change in a loving way. People think change is really scary and really difficult, but it's not, and this is why. Have you ever heard somebody say that they'll never change or that they're too old to change now? It's a common statement, and one I've either heard from older people, or about older people, again and again. There seems to be a belief that change is only for the younger generations for some reason. And yet, the truth is that we all change constantly. Because change is simply about changing old habit patterns, the ones we've been stuck in for quite a long time. It's not a scary word, and it happens all the time to everybody. Just think of something you did a lot at school. Maybe it was constantly eating junk food, taunting others, squeezing pimples. Not all habits are good. And do you still do that? No. So you've changed. And most changes are like that, small habits that we don't want anymore that seem to have just dropped off somewhere. And why wouldn't we change? Every cell in our bodies replaces itself within a few years. So why wouldn't every thought and cell in our minds change as well? Well, the cells certainly do, but the thoughts, not so readily, do they? This isn't because of any age barrier though, and it's not because of the lack of thoughts. We have around 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. But even though we have a lot of thoughts going through our mind, some out loud and most inside of our heads, we tend to think the same thoughts every single day. So that's a lot of repeated thoughts. And where your mind goes, energy flows. So if change isn't because of an age barrier, then what is it? It's because our body wants to hang on to what's familiar. It doesn't like stress, and you've taught it that you get stressed in unknown situations, so it sends messages to you, to your brain, such as, it's scary to change. Change isn't always for the better, and you tried it and you can't change. And none of these are true. But we don't question those objections, so they rule, they dominate, until of course they don't, when we're absolutely had enough and we're sick to death of them. When the thoughts are the same, then the patterns of behaviour remain the same. Einstein remarked a long time ago that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So we don't expect the same results, but we just hope and pray for things to change, or resign ourselves to the fact that we're just not lucky. That's why change seems so difficult, and it's unlikely in some people because the thoughts have been the same for such a long, long time, and they feel like they're a part of you. And they are. Just like a tree grows over a protrusion or a sapling, our mind adopts the thoughts as if they're real, as if they're a part of us. But what happens if we go to a restaurant that we love, the one we've been going to regularly for the past 10 years, and this one time we come home and we start barfing our guts out? You know what that's like? Just projectile vomiting from every orifice, and we feel really lousy for a day or so. Suddenly, that restaurant we loved so much is bypassed because whenever we think of it, our stomach churns. Now we have what we call motivation, because we need motivation to put changes in place. Nobody changes something without a reason, and that reason usually comes in the form of motivation, something we don't want. Not necessarily motivation to be better, but often motivation to get away from some pain. Like the relationship that ended badly. It's not that you put changes in place to be a wonderful person, is it? It's more likely that you just didn't want the pain of another crappy relationship. or even that job that you'll never do again because of the boss, the airline you'll never fly with again because they were so rude, or the hotel you'll avoid because of the bed bugs. You get the gist. That's motivation. Pain is a great motivator for change. The changes that we make are then in the opposite direction to the pain, and that's a good thing. Whether we're moving away from something we don't like or towards something we do, it's still change. And it's all moving in the right direction because it's moving towards something that feels a little better than what we had before. But some people really do want to change, and sometimes people we don't expect to change do. And yet, we don't really want them to because we're used to a specific way of feeling around that person. For instance, whether it's a people pleaser we go to for our complaints, somebody we expect to make us feel good about ourselves, or someone who puts us down every time we speak. Even though these people may have changed, we often won't let them. You can hold somebody stuck in old patterns because you're used to them acting in a certain way, and you respond to them in the old way. You then elicit the old patterns just when you're around them, the ones that you're used to, even though they're changing. This happens often in relationships. We don't allow others to change. You notice it's between parents and their children a lot. It doesn't matter how old the children are, whether they're 5 or 50, they can still remember the old patterns of behaviour and act out their part, eliciting the same response as previous times from the parents. But say your butcher has now become a superannuation salesman. You're not going to keep asking him for meat, are you? You don't expect him to still be a butcher. But we do with others in our life, because they don't hang a shingle on the door to advertise that they have changed. This happened to me when I did a lot of solo work on my relationship with my parents. There were a lot of things I remembered in a different way to my parents, and I had a lot of baggage, we'll call it. Quite a bit. Just memories and resentments I'd carried around with me, rather like a large chip on my shoulder, and it wasn't really working for me in my life now, as I wasn't happy. So I did the work. Journaling was my therapeutic tool. So I wrote about the memories and I poured my heart out onto the page after page. I kept going until I was emotionally empty, just pouring it out. Then I did a little ceremony, a celebration really, and I burnt the pages. It was my stuff after all. So I handed it all over to the universe. What followed was that the next time I visited my parents, not long after I'd done this process, but I'd forgotten I'd done the work. But they treated me differently, with respect and friendliness, the type afforded to a friend rather than a daughter, and it hadn't happened before. And this kept up. It was as if these were different parents because it was a totally new relationship. I noticed, my husband noticed, and I was actually happy to be around them again. They had changed, I thought. It was a miracle. However, when my sister visited, I saw that her relationship was the same as it was with them when she was growing up. There wasn't the adult respect there that I'd gained. I noticed the difference. She fell into the old patterns and they were there too, travelling the same path. What I came to understand was that my parents hadn't changed at all. I had. And because of that, they treated me differently without even being aware of it. I inspired a respectful response, and my sister elicited the same relationship as she always had. So the moral of the story is that it doesn't take two to change, it only takes one, and that one is you. You are the person who can change your life, and you'll be making changes, tweaks and refinements for the rest of your life, no matter how old you are. So just relax and enjoy the journey. Thanks for joining me.